Hello, good evening. I brought for you a wonderful video lecture on Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson is one of the finest American poetess of 19th century. And when it comes to her life, she was born in December 1830 and died in May 1886 in Amherst, Massachusetts. And during this 55 years of period, very few of her books were published as manuscripts in her active career. But most of her works are published posthumously only. And she is strongly attached to her family, brother Austin and sister Lavinia and Venny. And you can able to see in the picture three of them. Her life is a complex life because she may not have a good relationship with her father. Here we can able to see a quote from her relate with her father. His heart was pure and terrible, and I think no other like it exists. Coming to her mother, my mother does not care for heart. And in the active period of Emily Dickinson, only she visited once or twice New York in her lifetime. And my mother does not care for thought, and father too busy with his briefs to notice what we do. He busy me many books, but begs me not to read them because he fears they joggle the mind. That's the reason. But it appears when we closely observe her life and her works, we can able to find that we never get any instances that she studied as many books and interacted with several people in society, because she led an isolated life completely. She in her lifetime she has interacted with very few people. And here this is the evidence from A. Dickinson letter to Wentworth Higginson. It was written in 1862. And when it comes to her life, the deepening meaning of death, especially the death her cousin Sophia traumatized her in 1844, and religious revival in 1845 I never enjoyed. She addresses about her cousin's death. I never enjoyed such perfect peace and happiness as the short time in which I left I had found my Savior. There's a letter which she has written to one of her friends. Some keep the Sabbath, going to church. I keep it staying at home. She never visited. Hardly she visits churches, and on Sundays most of the people visit church, but she very rarely visits church. So that was mentioned there very clearly by herself. Life, a solitary lifestyle. I told you already. Emily Dickinson had led a solitary life. It is her own way. She has selected her own life, which she has chosen and enjoyed. She wanted to lead such a life, and she wanted to keep away from the society. She wanted to shut herself in a house, and she wanted to arrest herself away from the society. In 1858, she began to write clean copies of her own work, though she started in 1858. None of these works are published in her lifetime, and she would produce 40 bundles comprising nearly 800 poems, but no one knew of these until after her death. Till till to her death, nobody knows about her works, because her sister and other people who brought her works into publication, and they contributed for publication of her works. Formal education: attended Amherst Academy for 7 years, and then for only 10 months Mount Holke Female Seminary she attended. Reasons for leaving are not unknown, because her life is completely a private life. Most of the people, even at her contemporary period, also doesn't know much about her life, because she may not have good friends outside her family. Either she was in poor health, she rebelled against the evangelical fervor present at the school, or she was simply homesick. These may be the reasons for leaving early from the school. Formative influences. And there are several people who influenced her for writing poetry. Like your Benjamin F. Newton introduced her to Wordsworth, Coleridge, Emerson, and these are the contemporaries of her period. Wordsworth, Coleridge, even Emerson. Wordsworth and Coleridge are from Britain, and Emerson is from America. And these three were introduced to her. He was introduced. Newton, F. Newton is a person. He introduced her to them. When a little girl, I had a fine a friend who taught me immorality, but venturing to near himself, he never returned. And these are some of the lines which were written by her in her poetry. And her sister-in-law, Susan, about her: my most beloved friend, influencer, muse, and advisor. Susanna is one of her in-law who likes her very much, and she is friendly and influential person of Dickinson. The other people are also there who influenced Dickinson. Charles Wordsworth, and he is one of the person who influenced her. My Philadelphia and My Clergyman. These are the writings by Charles Wordsworth. Samuel Boswell, owner and editor of Springfield Republication, is also one of the person who influenced her, and we can able to find it through the master letters which were written by Samuel Boswell. Life of Emily Dickinson. In the summer of 1858, she started revising her poems, making clean copies, and writing in earnest. By 1816, she had withdrawn from social life. Within a period of 2 years, she started writing, and she wanted to move away from the society. Reasons are not very clear here, but she has exhibited a withdrawn personality from the society. She keeps away from the society. The first half of 1860s has her most productive writing period. We can consider 1860s from January to July, August. These 6 to 8 month period is the period which is most productive period in her life as a poetess. They shut me up in prose as when a little girl they put me in the closet because they like me still. These are the lines she has written. But she didn't choose prose, she has chosen only poetry. Still, could themselves have peeped and seen by brain go round, they might as wise have lodged a bird for treason in the pound. See, when you look at these lines, this very different and complicated when we analyze for the meaning of these sentences. The life of a writer. In 1862, April, Thomas Wentworth Higginson, the general editor of the Atlantic Monthly, wrote a letter to a young contributor and addresses about Emily Dickinson. Dickinson reply is my verse alive. She is not ready to write her response. She is not ready to say about herself. She has just confined to say that I'm not alive. My works are alive. My works are good enough to the world, me known to the world. These are the words. Just we can able to analyze and understand a lot of things from her life. In 1874, Emily's father suffered a stroke and died. She only opened her door a crack for the funeral and did not attend a service. That's her peculiar behavior she has exhibited even at the death of her father. After a year later, her mother suffered a stroke and was left in bad physical and mental state. And these two are added to her third misery in her life. Around this time, Emily stopped going out in public but still had visitors and wrote to close friends. See, if we see these two instances made, influenced, and her mental condition was completely disturbed and she was confined to home completely with these two incidents. A solemn thing it was, I said, a woman why to be and where if God should count me fit her blameless mystery. She wanted to appear in white every time. She used to wear white dress because she wanted to make a clear note with her dressing that I am an angel, that I am godly, I am divine. That's her message. And in her one of the poem, we can able to find that she has fallen in love with death. And let life decline and death. Home is so far from home. Here two words, home and home. Home, which is we are living. Home is an eternal home, that is a graveyard. Otis Philip Lord, a late life romance, as in affair with Mabel Loomis, thought that death of Emily's mother and nephew Gilbert, a great darkness coming. If we see all these lines, we can able to find that her mother's death has created a lot of disturbance in her mind. With that, she completely shut herself in a house, and she has avoided her public life, and she led an isolated life. Helen Hunt Jackson convinced Emily to publish, and success is counted sweetest anonymously and a mask of poets. This is only the one work by the compulsion of Jackson. Helen Hunt Jackson, she has published, and this is the finest work. During her lifetime, this is published. This was the last poem published in her lifetime, also. Here, this is the tombstone of Emily Dickinson. Emily has died at the age of 55 of bright disease. Her coffin was carried through daffodils, and Higginson read, "No coward soul is mine," by Emily Bronte, Emily's favorite poem. She was buried at West Cemetery on Triangle Street in Amherst. Lavinia promised. There's a promise to Emily Dickinson by Lavinia, and that she would burn Emily's correspondence after her death. But she didn't do all these things. No instructions were left regarding the 40 notebooks and loose sheets Emily left in her chest. And this is the writing treasury of Emily Dickinson after her death. This was recovered from her chest, and Winnie sought to have them published. Her sister Winnie has published all these works posthumously. Reading Dickens' life, no critical concerns as to the cause for Emily's withdrawal and extreme seclusion. Here, we don't know much reasons behind her seclusion. We don't know much reasons behind her complete isolated life, but she had led a complete isolated life in her 55 years of active tenure. Judith Farr claims that it was a combination of a profound shyness with artistic combination that motivated the poet's choice of life. It may be the reason she has chosen a life of a particular life, that she wanted to move away from the society because of shyness which has grown up with her since her childhood. It made her move away from the society and influenced her to lead an isolated life. By turning the key of her bedroom door, she avoided having to meet others while being free to write poetry. And this is the thing. Even she is not ready to interact with many people, even in her house also. She never opened her bedroom and come out of it, even not ready to interact with people. And even she is not freely moving in her house. Emily Ford has attributed the poetess retirement to an aesthetic sensibility. We can say that she has completely led a life of retirement at the tender ages itself. It may be termed as aesthetic sensibility. That sensibility has grown up in her mind, and that's the reason she led a private, completely a different life. Dickens' choice of life was related to the romantic idea that the life of an artist should be a life apart. No artist wanted to lead such a life, but Dickinson is the only person she had chosen after such a life and led. O poet, those shall leave the world and know the muse only. And this is the lines which are written by Emerson, the poet, 1840s, about Dickinson. According to Gilbert and Goober, Dickens' radical seclusion was necessary strategy to free her from feminine obligations, which might be otherwise have hindered her art. So here, for hindrance of her poetry, reasons are feminine obligations, and for her private life, leading a life away from the society, maybe also this is also maybe the reason. Feminine obligation may be the reason. The Mad Women in Attica, the women writer and 19th century literary imagination, is the book which was saying about Emily Dickinson. And her decision to dress in white has been read as an unconscious way to fictionalize herself into rules of a little maid. The angel in the house are the eccentric artist, and I told you already, she used to dress in white all the time, and she addresses, it may be her message to all the other people that a little the angel in the house, like the black page, the white dress suggests paradoxically both a way to inscribe herself as an invisible woman and as a self assertive poet. And this is the writing by Gilbert and Goober, the Mad Woman in Attica. Uh, Festo edition. Poems of Emily Dickinson appeared in 1890s, edited by Mabel Loomis, Todd, and T.W. Higginson. These are the three people who contributed for publishing Emily Dickinson's works. In 1894, Letters of Emily Dickinson was edited by Mabel Loomis Todd. In 1924, The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson by Martha Dickinson. In 1955, The Poems of Emily Dickinson by Thomas Johnson were the complete poems which were published by different people, not by herself. Two volumes of Emily Letters, highly edited, appeared. Susan Dickinson, Austen's wife, published some poems in literary magazines such as Scribner's Magazine and The Independent. Martha Dickinson, Beyonce, Emily's niece, published a series of collections between 1914 to 1929. Other volumes followed throughout the from 1929, 1930s, even after 1930s or also till to 1960s. Some of the Emily's works were published. The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson was published by Thomas H. Johnson. It contained all 1775 of her poems, all united and published as one. Various books of her poems and letters have been published since. Dickens' poetry is known for. So, if we look at her work, what is the peculiarity? What is the specialization of Dickens' poetry? Dickens' poetry has a random capitalization. That we have a reason for using capitalization, but she uses a random capitalization. This is the peculiarity of her poetry. Unconventional broken rhyming metry. Rhyming is also unconventional. No other person can adopt such a type of rhyming. She uses such a type of rhyming. And use of dashes is very frequent, and we don't now use such type of dashes. No titles are used. Unconventional punctuation marks are also used by Emily Dickinson. Use of metaphor is also one of the considerable quality of horror poetry. Dickinson is considered one of the most original poets of 19th century, placed alongside such poets as Walt Whitman and Robert Frost. Taught in grade school, taught in grade school, high school, and college. A powerful and persistent figure of American culture, heralded as the greatest women poet in English language. And these are the few things about the life of Emily Dickinson. In the next class, I am going to deal with some other English uh, novelist. Then till then, you stay safe, and stay at home. Thank you for watching my video.